Internet DDA here, and we have bringing to you another first look set 4 deck profile video, a first look video. You all saw my poll about what set 4 leaders you're excited about in the new set 4 Jump to Lightspeed of Star Wars Unlimited. The top winners were, I think, Poe Dameron and Piett. I saw those come in the highest frequency of the voting. So I wanted to bring you my first look of this Piett build. You call this like a mid-range, strong space mid-range deck. I want to call it aggressive because it is incredibly aggressive. It is not a control deck. It does not play many of the control cards whatsoever. In fact, this deck, the current version of this deck, I only have running 9 events. That is 3 Power of the Dark Side, 3 Overwhelming Barrage, and 3 Turbo Laser Salvo, and that is it for my events moving in for this first version. Now, of course, this may change. I may modify this heavily based on playtesting, but this is what I'm starting with. So to get in here, I don't want to talk about every single card. I just want some notes. We go very light in the early game. Our early game is mostly like Academy Graduate to give us Sentinels. We have 6 Sentinels that we can play in either the ground or the space arena to help us slow down the opponent. The goal of this deck is going to be to slow down the opponent a little bit in the early game and push in strong in the mid game with those capital ships. So we got the Gamorrean Retainers in there to help us on our Piett flip, give us Sentinel. We have the Graduates in there to help us with Sentinels. We have Piett units as well to give us ambush for our capital ships that we're going to start to drop. Of course, we have the Outlaw Corona in there. That is the earliest capital ship available for us and actually a turn 1 play. Now this card is actually makes it an argument for us to go even lighter on the turn 1 plays because you can consider this a turn 1 play. So there is some potential for us to cut even more early game, like maybe cut an Academy Graduate, maybe cut a Gamorrean Retainer, to go even lighter in the early game and maybe push a little bit into the more stronger in the mid game. But we got the Victor Leaders in there. Victor Leader is going to be one of the strongest space cards. At a 2/4, it's fairly sticky for a 3-drop. And then it's going to buff all of your space units. Amazing card. The Corvus is actually maxed out at 3 for me because this is one of the earlier capital ships that you can drop down turn 3. Think of it like a Space Kanan. All right, it's a 4/5, restore 2. You drop it turn 3 on 4 resource with Piett ability. And then it's there for you to kind of take over against the early aggro decks, take over against the space aggro decks. With that restore 2, we're not really using the ability here. We can use the ability on the Academy Graduate, but it's not here for that. It's mainly here for that Kanan stat stick, the 4/5 restore 2, to really help us sail into the mid and late game against the aggro decks. We have 2 copies of the Dorian gunship in here as a game sealer. Once we built up a big space fleet, we can drop this down for cheap to do like 5 or 6 indirect damage and really kind of close out the game for us. We are also running the MC-30 assault frigates. Just, again, a strong kind of beater unit in the mid game. You're going to drop it on turn 3 or turn 4 with Piett. Of course, Overwhelming Barrage here is a premium because we have such big units we're dropping with Piett. You can see here we're not running Resupply or Super Laser Tech. That is because we are solely relying on the Piett ability to ramp us, and we are additionally relying on the Resupply Carrier to ramp us as well. You know, dropping the Resupply Carrier on the Piett flip turn is very easy and possible, and will ramp you to get into those late game capital ships. You know, skip 6 and go right to 7, so that way you can drop your 7 and 8 capital ships at that point. Or even a 9, because if you go to from 5 to 7, then if Piett is still in play, you can drop a 9 like Avenger, following the Piett deploy, which would just be crazy. So Fleet Interdictator comes in here, a really strong card. You can, I actually have the 3rd one in the sideboard because you can, if your opponent is running over you in space, you can flip Piett and then do a 5-drop on 7. You can do that on the Piett flip turn, which is really good to note there. You know, get that 6/6 Sentinel on board. on the Piett flip turn really strong. So it's at 2, but we have the third one in the side. And then, of course, we are running 3 turbo laser salvos. We are going to be slowing down the opponent with sentinels and just our stronger units in general. So the turbo laser salvo is going to come in and just sweep the field. Our Quinton's Assault Cruiser is an excellent card to really push us into the Devastator turn. You know, usually the ramp isn't useful at that point in the game, but it is useful in a Piett deck because it can ramp us from 8 to 10 and set up for the Devastator. And then, of course, we're running Avenger and Devastator as our late game closeout cards. This is my starting point for the Piett deck. I think it's very strong mid-range. It plays aggressive. It is not a control deck. It's not slow, so that's why we don't run Resupply Super Laser. You are going to be dropping bombs from the beginning of the game, pushing in, doing tons of damage, and sweeping the field with your ultimate Overwhelming Barrage and Turbo Laser Salvo plays. So this is my first take. It's probably going to change a lot, but I think it's a good starting point. You know, the Colossus gives us that breathing room. To be able to play those late game ships and get into that late game. And then, of course, because we're not running the Super Laser Tech and the Resupply, every card that you draw is going to be an amazing card. So we're okay with starting with one less card. We're okay with that. And we do play a higher number of turn 1 plays because of the Outlaw Coronas. So if you like this video, please hit that like button. We're going to be pushing out with a ton more of these first look videos. Piett is just definitely a powerhouse. So if you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. And then stay tuned for us again. We are going to be coming out with a ton of these deck profile videos moving into Set 4 Jump to Lightspeed. And thanks for joining us. These decks are so fun, and I'm having such fun building them.